League of Legends hot takes. Let's take a look what you guys sent in. This game should have died years ago. Honestly, I low-key agree. In terms of how things are, in terms of games surviving or not surviving, is very circumstantial. If you look at the competitive scene, players like, of course, Faker, them being around is a crucial aspect of the survival of esports and its popularity. If you think about the LEC, if Yamato, Ibai, and Kadrul were interested in other games and they funneled all of that energy into other places, what would have happened? There's certain elements that are irreplaceable and they are completely circumstantial. And I think that Riot took a lot of good decisions to scale League of Legends, and they have leveraged their kind of momentum in a very good way to scale to the point that they're at now. But definitely, I think along the way that there were no other games that were greater, there were no games created. All of this, of course, is circumstantial because Riot and League of Legends is constantly in a race against invisible enemies. You never know where the attention is going to go, and one mistake, one simple misstep like the removal of Hextech chess can definitely just kill a game. Caps is not and will never be the best EU mid laner. So this definitely was a hot take, a dog shit hot take. In terms of the people that are in the conversation, you have the likes of Perks, you have the likes of maybe Froggen, maybe Alex Ish if you go far enough back and you really isolate the Moscow 5 years. I think Caps, in terms of what his career has been and in terms of the sheer dominance, there is no player in the world that comes close in terms of how much regional dominance they've had. He has made 2 finals, 1 MSI. There is nobody that is a part of this conversation. So this is just stupidity, but that's what Twitter allows. Stupidity. If all super mains would get IP banned, the game would be much more enjoyable. The issue is there will always be a need for supports, and your issue with the current supports would then transfer to the other supports because the role in itself is just a comparison to one support to the other, and that measurement will be there no matter what. But I do think that in terms of esports, there are opportunities for mid laners and other roles to take some support jobs. So while radical, crazy, there is some merit in what you're saying. HLE will choke just like Genji in Worlds. Well, HLE have Zeus on the team, so hot take, but very bad. T1 and Genji are both better teams than HLE, and so is BLG. T1, there's an argument for that, right? T1 were very close to beat HLE, and then we wouldn't have seen this journey at all. They had a qualifier match, and Game 5, T1 was in a very winning position that they squandered against HLE. HLE, of course, improved, and we weren't allowed to see how T1 could potentially improve as things went on. Genji, fair and square, lost against HLE. I can say 2 best of 5s. HLE was far superior. Genji have a lot of problems in the support department in terms of consistency, and Canyon is also not performing super well. And I think at the same time, their draft reads aren't as strong as HLE. So that one is just the Lulu. Finally, Bilibili with the change to jungle. I think that Bilibili definitely struggled in the conversation of Fearless in terms of finding cohesive drafts. And at the same time, I do think that Wei is just not a good player. So on the front of Bilibili, makes no sense. Genji makes no sense. T1, arguable. But at the same time, you know, HLE did complete the run, beat everybody. And we cannot assume instantly that T1 can do the same thing, right? Just because, like, maybe they would have done it better, maybe they would have done it worse. But considering HLE beat everybody and they won first stand, taking for granted that T1 would do the same is just in poor taste. Peanut is the greatest jungler of all time. I am ready for this conversation. Peanut's longevity is unmatched by anybody else. He has won LCK with so many different players, different rosters, has found so amazing peaks in terms of his mechanical peaks when it was, you know, his Rocksteiger years and also his T1 years. I think that was amazing. I think his stint in the LPL was kind of disappointing because I think that that's where he lost some of his edge. But then his return to the LCK was once again, you're just insane. You know, the main point of comparison always is going to be Canyon. Canyon, World's Trophy, you know, has found incredible peaks in terms of who has achieved the highest peak in terms of gameplay. I think nobody can take that away from Canyon. But I think that you need to have a deep appreciation for how good and consistent Peanut is and how often his teams just morph into something so amazing. But I know the critic is going to look at that and say, yo, Peanut no World Championship, doesn't matter. But I do think that the 95% of League of Legends that you play within a year should matter a lot when it comes to the conversation of being the greatest jungler. Depends on what your metrics are. And I think that it's fair to say in certain metrics that Peanut can be the greatest jungler of all time. Yike better than Peanut. Aye. Well, this is a silliness. Put a lot of weight on some of the Peanut Zinzao performances and Zyra performances in terms of higher rated things. I thought that Yike brought a very, very high level of consistency to KC. And I did think that Peanut got away with more because of how good HLE is. But it seems like with HLE, that's just a torch that you pass around. One player underperforms, the other pick up the slack. And at first stand, Peanut definitely did. He dropped some heavy bangers when, you know, a teammate of his was underperforming, and HLE is just too good. Too good. Too good to be true. Yike over Peanut. Jesus Christ. Kanavi over Peanut is even worse. Yamato was never a good coach. So Yamato started his coaching career back in 2015. His first team was auto-relegated, so that was a bad start. I think there's many points in time where I would point to that looking at the history of YamatoCannon, that he's a pretty solid coach. So, hot take, but same time, shit take. Faker is the best player ever, but Riot is insanely unprepared for life without him when he retires. They had a music video planned to drop featuring him and T1 heavily, and they almost missed Worlds less than 24 hours before. I honestly agree. I think that Faker is so important for the marketing of the game. I'm sure there's people in Riot HQ that are so angry that Faker doesn't play with skins. I think that the viewership will always point to T1 and Faker being such an important aspect. And I think additionally, that's an additional layer why it's so crazy that T1 fumbled re-signing Zeus, because that is supposed to be the legacy. And now that legacy is being built over in HLE. If you put Chovy or Zeka on T1 in the last two worlds, T1 would have 3-0 both times, as in my opinion, Zeus and Owner were the true carries on the team in those finals, with the way Owner passed and Zeus caught pushed waves. Well, I think for 2023, I think that argument can be made. I think that Zeus's performance was so incredible in terms of how hard he carried that probably you could switch out Faker if you don't count the intangibles, right? Because it's impossible for us to measure how important Faker is in the back room, and I don't want to underestimate that. I'm talking strictly gameplay. Strictly gameplay. Faker in terms of gameplay, what's happening in the game, what we see on our screens, not comms, not backroom. Don't get angry. I understand that Faker brings a lot of intangibles. Don't get angry. Stop writing the comment right now, man. I do think that Chovy, Zeka, with that T1 roster, definitely on the rift in terms of what they did, could win at 2023. But 2024, I disagree completely. What Faker did in the finals to beat Bilibili, I don't think Zeka or Chovy could do, or we can trust them to do. I think that you are heavily underestimating how good Billy was and what T1 was required to do to actually defeat them in the end. That's it for this episode of Hot Takes. Let's bring some more hot takes to the next one. Remember, hot takes, they need to be unique, they need to stand out, they need to come from the deepest crevice of your brain. Bring forth the darkness in terms of your thoughts about League of Legends. Don't give me something generic. It's like, I don't like Fearless. It's like, come on. Get dirty. Get in there, man. I'll be there for the next one. Thank you very much. Peace.